Hello Internet, I'm Zahn and welcome back to another drawing commentary video. It has been what feels like quite a while since I recorded one of these, and I do want to continue to balance out the Let's Play content on my channel with art related stuff. So I figured a good way to do that would be to jump back into a drawing video, this time focusing on the Pixel Sprite design types. And I figured the best way to sort of jump back into commentary content for sprites would be to do something that I've already done for the two-dimensional designs, and that is a random shape drawing challenge. Now, if you've never seen any of my other drawing commentary videos like this, the way these drawing challenges work is pretty similar to what other artists on YouTube have done in other types of drawing formats. And that is creating some sort of design or image from a randomly generated starting shape. And for our purposes here, what that means is if I were to randomly draw an outline of a shape here, working in Photoshop on pixel level, I would have to take the random shape that I start with and create some sort of fully fleshed out design using that shape as a base. And like I've done on previous examples, there are some ground rules that I would need to follow in doing this challenge. And I thought a little bit about how I want to enforce the rules, and I think I'm going to make a couple slight concessions for this particular type of drawing format, just because it's a little bit different than the Rhino 3D two-dimensional designs that I've done in the past. So for this challenge, the basic rules are as follows. Number one, the original shape that I start with, again this is just a sample here, the original shape that I start with has to be preserved in some sort of format. And the way I'm going to ensure that happens is once I draw my starting shape, I'm going to clean up the outline, which I might not even need to for this particular type of design. I'm going to take the original shape, I'll probably fill it black, that way it's easy to make out, and then I'm going to copy it into a layer and store it. And then using that base shape, obviously without the color, I will draw the design, and at the end our rule check will be taking the original starting shape and superimposing it over our final result and seeing if the original shape is preserved and we pass that rule to challenge. The second rule is altering things on the border of the shape are allowed as long as it doesn't distort the shape too much. And the way I want to approach this here would be, if this is my starting shape, again this is just a sample, and let's say I wanted to add some things around it, like let's say we're making some sort of tentacled creature and we put a bunch of tentacles here. That's fine. If we wanted to, let's say, add another limb or appendage coming out here, which would result in us deleting the border here, that would be fine. And likewise, anything else we add out here is fine. What is not fine would be if we were to change the shape here and delete out a section of the original border, and then let's say we started drawing more appendages over here. Well, we've already distorted the original shape that we started with, therefore that's against the rules. Instead, what we'd have to do is maintain the original shape and build onto the outside so that the overall border, when we come back to do our rule check at the end, is still visible in its original format. And that rule is there to keep this challenging and not give me too many options of flexibility when it comes to working with the parameters to come up with something original. The only other rule that I want to institute for this would be no extreme transformations to the original shape. And that means no copying, rotating, scaling, or mirroring of the original shape. In other words, I couldn't take our original starting shape and copy it and flip it around or rotate it. The scaling at the pixel level tends to get wonky if you try and rotate or scale these anyway. The line work tends to get distorted. But the rule is I can't copy or manipulate the original shape in any capacity. I've got to use it as a base and build onto it and around it and within it in order to come up with some sort of design from that starting base. Other than those 3 rules, I don't think there's anything else I want to set as a ground rule for this particular challenge. This is the first time I've done this on camera. If you've tuned into my streams over on Twitch that I do, I've taken the approach for random drawing based on shapes before. I've done it on stream a couple times. But this is the first time I've actually talked through the process. So the point of this is going through the design process and coming up with ideas to create something on the fly while talking through it for the sake of discussion and commentary. And I think that will at least give some visibility into my thought process when I'm doing these. It's probably not going to be anything too profound. A lot of times I have no idea what is going to pop out. Just like I've mentioned in other videos for free drawing, I'll just start throwing a bunch of ideas at the wall, see what sticks, and then refine the ideas down until I get a finished product. And I think that'll be a fun experiment here. We will trial run this with an initial design and then see how long it takes, and from there figure out how many of these I want to do. If this doesn't take too long, maybe I'll do a few. If this ends up running on the longer side, maybe I'll just do one. But we can go ahead and get started. In our Photoshop canvas for this particular series or video, I'm working on a bigger canvas than normal for the Pixel Sprites. We go to the image size. I'm using my large size canvas, which is double what I normally use. I think the regular one is 120 by 120 pixels. This one's 240 by 240. I use this scale for the mecha designs, and I use this template for the Jurassic World Alive dino sprites. I figured in order to make things interesting, I will work at a larger resolution and give myself more room. That way, if I really want to create something large and detailed, I won't be constrained as much as when I use my regular Pixel Sprite template. So we can go ahead and get started. I will close my eyes, as I've done in the past, and I will draw a random shape, and then I will move on from there and see where the design process takes me. Alright, close my eyes now. I'm just going to put my stylus on the canvas, and I'm going to draw random shapes, and I'll have to close it off. Okay, looks like I cut out a bit of it here. So we'll go ahead and delete this section out, and then we'll connect it here. I think what I will do, just for the sake of consistency, is I will do a real quick cleanup on the border before I fill it. That way I can use that as a starting point for the rest of the design. While I'm doing this, which doesn't necessarily require a ton of concentration, to recap how I do these pixel sprites in Photoshop, I work at the pixel level using the pencil tool, and the way I do my sprites right now is with a black border. I know some people do their sprite work borderless and they rely on shading to provide the boundaries. I would like to learn how to do that at some point, but until then, the style that I've gone with is a bit more old school, and that's using a boundary that's a single pixel layer black border you see here. And the reason why I'm deleting out the excess pixels is to give myself a clean place to start. So what we will do is we will duplicate this because we want to keep a copy of this for later, and we're gonna call this sample. This one's gonna go... We'll form fill it black. Actually, I may have to format that to be a different color when I post this. We'll leave it open for now. I haven't figured out what my template is gonna look like when I do the renders for these. We'll keep it unfilled for now, just in case I end up doing something with that later. We'll hide that. Put it away. Our starting layer, we'll call this lines. Give ourselves 2 layers underneath for the base color, and then the highlights, shading. Now we will start the brainstorming process for figuring out what we're going to do with our starting shape here. It looks like by closing my eyes and just drawing a random shape, I've drawn some sort of continent. We don't have a lot of sharp edges, but there are a lot of different parts to the shape. Let's see. This sort of looks like a head over here if we were to draw an eye. It also looks like it could be part of a torso, a body. And down here, if I were to fill in a couple lines and keep an eye on where my boundaries are, this could be a leg. And if this is a leg, then maybe up here, again, taking care to not distort the original boundaries of our shape, which are right here. If we created an arm here, then we seem to be moving towards the path of a bipedal creature. And right away, I'm thinking that might not be a bad place to go here. The real question is what we're going to do with the body in order to get to some sort of neck or head. Our original boundary is this line right here, which we can't delete. But what if we started adding some additional detail here and start moving towards something like this? This is going to be a pretty large scale design from the looks of it here, which is why I wanted to work on this sort of canvas and give myself more room. Okay, definitely moving more the dinosaur route now from the looks of things here. If we start cleaning up the line work, and I'm doing a rough primary here like I usually do, to sort of play around with poses and general outline details and try to zero in on where we're going, and then once we have a rough primary good to go, then I will start cleaning up the outer line work. Adding in another leg here. Okay, keeping in mind our original boundary, which I may have to mark here just so I don't delete it by accident. I'll put these 2 dots here as a reminder that I need to be careful of this particular part. The rest of the body I'm not entirely worried about when it comes to making sure I don't delete too much. But now that we're moving sort of the dinosaur route, which is topical because I've been drawing a lot of dinosaur sprites from Jurassic World Alive on my recent streams. But let's figure out a tail type solution here. Keeping the original boundaries, again, we'll mark this here. I'm not too worried about this top edge, but I want to be mindful of where it lies. That way I don't accidentally delete out a section by mistake. The real question will be what we want to do with the back. We could do a row of spikes going out this way, but I feel like that would be pretty boring and normal. We could try and go for a more shell type look if we start adding in some detail here along the back. We could do something like crystal spikes, kind of like a geode. And working within that, we could add rows, sort of like a Stegosaurus, but instead of regular plates, these will be crystal ore fragments. Keeping in mind our lower boundary is over here. I think I'm not too worried about deleting that. I think that'll stay. It seems to mark off a good endpoint for the torso before it goes in the tail. Then we can add some underbelly plates here. If we zoom out a little bit, you can already see that our starting sprite is pretty large. This is almost filling the width of the 240 by 240 canvas, which is fine. If we zoom in a little bit, let's focus on the head and figure out what we're going to do here. We've got our sort of large jaws, sort of have the neck sloping upwards. This is a short-necked creature. What if we did a similar sort of plating along the top of the head, matching the same sort of crystal spikes that are on the back? These will be sort of faceted to give the texture of being crystals. I'll have to play around with the angles here and make sure it makes sense. I think that'll do for here. Cleaning up this will be a bit of a chore, I think. But when it's done, it should look like this thing has a bunch of mineral crystals growing out of its back, which is sort of the intent here. If we put in a placeholder for an eye, let's see, do we want the eye to be further back? I think that's a good place for it. I may experiment with the scale and size here to give it a less vacant look, but that'll be a placeholder for now. Alright, we can do a status report check on our original shape and make sure that we're still following the rules of the challenge. Let's go ahead and put this up near the top. Looks like I was drawing one layer below where I needed to. Here's our sample. Here's the original layer. Everything we built onto it's below it. I'm gonna have to merge these two together. But it looks like we're fine on our original shape, which is good. We will call this lines, make sure we don't lose it again. If we unhide the sample layer, which is on top, we can see that it lines up perfectly. There's no missing spots. So I think we are good as far as our original shape preservation here. What I want to do now, which is going to be probably the most time-consuming part of this particular design, is start cleaning up the line work. I'm gonna save this here, and then work from the head and start cleaning up the outer line work sections. And this will probably take a little while. In the meantime, while I'm doing this, which again doesn't require much concentration, I'm just deleting out extra pixels and cleaning up the lines and shapes for the border. And then once I finish this, I'll go in and work on adding some more detail to the sprite itself before we get to coloring. But while we're doing this, I guess this could be a good time to do sort of a mini podcast segment, since it's been a little while, a few videos since I've done any sort of discussion on state of things and plans for the channel and other things that I'm working on, in addition to just YouTube videos and whatnot. So to sort of kick off the podcasty portion of the video while I'm doing the line cleanup, as of the date of recording this, it is the later part of February. We are trucking along in 2021, getting ready to leave the month of February and go into March, with spring approaching quickly. And things have been busy. I've been working on a lot of video type stuff, but I do have plans for a lot of interesting things in 2021. From a Let's Play perspective and an art perspective. It's just going to take some coordination to get a lot of that stuff put into play. But I am looking forward to next month in March, because at the end of March on the 26th, Monster Hunter Rise comes out, which I have been eagerly awaiting for quite some time. That is definitely my most anticipated game for 2021, and Capcom has been slowly drip feeding details and information regarding Rise to the community as it's been proceeding, and there have been some press events. The demo, which came out, what was it, January? On Switch for Rise was a lot of fun. I'm still spending a decent amount of time every once in a while tinkering around with the weapons and learning the new mechanics and whatnot. I've spent probably more time in that demo than I have on some actual retail games, which is pretty funny. But there's an event at the beginning of March that Capcom's throwing, and I'm assuming they're going to announce more details about the game, as well as give details on a potential second demo before the end of the month. That'll be exciting. Sort of on topic, when we're talking about Monster Hunter, I recently wrapped up the Let's Play of Iceborne that I was doing on my YouTube channel. The Adventures of Elta the Hunter wrapped up, I want to say, earlier in February, at the end of January. And originally I had wanted to do a lot more of the post-game content for Iceborne. But with Rise coming out soon and wanting to not be 100% burnt out on Monster Hunter before then, I decided to wrap up with the last recording session and sort of call it good for Iceborne. I definitely enjoyed my time at the game and will probably revisit it at some point. I just don't know that it's going to be for YouTube. One thing I'm looking into right now that I haven't quite figured out yet is the idea of potentially doing a Let's Play of Rise on Switch when it comes out. The stuff I'm trying to figure out is the video capture. I don't have an Elgato, and I'm thinking about picking one up if I can get it to work with my PC and get it to output footage and capture data from the Switch to my PC. If I can do that and play it in real time and not have any latency issues or quality issues, then I may consider doing a completely from scratch Let's Play of Rise when it comes out. I have essentially a month and a half to make a hard commitment on doing that, but depending on what my research yields and if it's going to be feasible to do capture and editing stuff for a Switch game, that's something I am highly considering, because I have never done a ground up Let's Play of a Monster Hunter game on my channel. The Monster Hunter World and Iceborne Let's Play, which was something like 100 something parts, that might be the longest running Let's Play I've done on a single game, but that wasn't going in with no background. The playthrough on PC that I did for YouTube was my first playthrough of the game on PC, but I'd already played through the Iceborne content on PS4. If I were to do a Rise Let's Play from the beginning when it comes out, I wouldn't be waiting until later. I would be going in that game with no previous knowledge or background save for what I experienced in the demo. So that would be first for Monster Hunter. I would essentially be experiencing everything for the first time on camera, and that would be interesting. Depending on how feasible that ends up being, we'll see. I think it could be a fun experiment. You guys would be able to see me fail at Monster Hunter in real time, or learn about Monster Hunter and fail in real time, experience all of the story and everything else. So we'll see. I haven't quite decided. I'm still looking into how that's going to work if I decided to do that with this machine. I don't think there's a problem with my PC being able to handle it. It's more a matter of if I'm able to get all of the data captured in high enough quality for it to be a worthwhile series on YouTube. More to come on that. Aside from Rise coming out in March, there's not a ton of new games that I'm actively looking forward to. There's a lot of things on my backlog I still need to play, and depending on how much of my time Rise monopolizes, that's gonna largely depend on how much time I budget and allow to be able to work on other stuff. As of the date of recording this, I have finished the first recording session for Hollow Knight, which is the current Let's Play going on my channel right now. I'm hoping to sit down in the next few days and record another session. What I usually do for my Let's Plays is I will record a chunk of footage, edit that, upload it, and then when I start running up against the edge of the recording session and running out of footage to put into episodes, then I'll sit down and record another chunk and then edit that and so forth. For Hollow Knight, I don't think I want to wait until I run out of footage, because that's going to be a little while. Instead, if I get a chance in the next couple days, I'm not busy with other stuff, I may sit down and try and do another full session and continue on, because that game is very interesting.